Ready to call the meeting to order here. I think we have to take some roll call. Okay, Jackie, go ahead for the council.
Councilmember Ray,
Here.
Welby,
Here.
Armstrong,
Here.
Beach, here, Stones, here, Mayor Richardson,
Present.
Board Member Selgray,
Present.
White, present, Smith, present, Alaska, Boyds.
Present. Okay. We have Alicia, I think, is going to do a presentation for us here.
Yes.
Go ahead and have that. Thank you.
There you go.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. As usual, I am here with Holmes Murphy to review the health insurance and related renewals tonight. Just to start out, introduction and disclosure. Anything that we have in front of you here today is basically just a summary of what we've already provided to HR. We only work with A-rated carriers, which means that they're going to be around and financially able to pay claims for the city. Agenda, we're going to start out going through the medical renewal and budget, and then we'll finish up with dental, vision, and some of those ancillary renewal. Jumping to page 5 here is just kind of the overview of where we're sitting financially on the medical budget for the year. If we look down at that kind of bottom left-hand corner with the red boxes, you can see right now our average claims and administrative costs is running at $1,009.85 per employee per month. Where we have set our budget for the year is at $1,071.03 per employee per month. So we are running at about 94% of where we've set our budget for the year. A couple things I'll point out. If you look kind of in the middle of the page, you can see claims paid broken out on a medical and pharmacy basis. And then you can see stop loss reimbursements. Those are credits that come back to the plan when someone has breached the specific deductible level of $100,000. That's per member on the plan. So that would include spouses and dependents as well. You can see that so far year to date, and this is through January, we have not had any individuals breach that $100,000 mark. Pharmacy rebates also come back to the plan as a credit. I'm pointing that out now because that will be something that we discuss as a decision proceeded for 2025 renewal. You can see you've had about $50,000 come back to the plan in the form of pharmacy rebates. And if we break that out on a per employee per month basis, we're receiving right now just shy of $55 per employee per month back to the plan.
Can you explain the rebates?
Yeah, so manufacturers have rebates associated with prescription drugs.
Oh.
Generally, the more expensive the drug, the higher the rebate that comes back to the plan. And so that as a self-funded plan, Wellmark actually passes 100% of the rebates they receive from the manufacturers of those drugs. They pass that directly back to the city. So it's essentially just a credit that the manufacturer uses to help make drugs more affordable and encourage utilization of the drugs.
Thank you.
The next page is really a 3-year look back that we do compared to the current year. So you can see 4 columns there. The farthest right column is our current plan year starting in July 2024. And really looking at kind of the same data points we just looked at, but on that 4-year basis. Again, you can see last year, kind of that 4th line down, the stop loss reimbursements. I'll point that out. Last year, we had almost $1.1 million in stop loss reimbursements. Prior 2 years, very light from a reimbursement perspective, but we did have a pretty heavy year back during the 2023 plan year. Pharmacy rebates, again, had a little more pharmacy rebate usage last year. This year, we only have, a half a year of data or so. So we'll see how those end up coming in. But what I would do is kind of point you down again to those 2 red lines. That's what we do to normalize things given the fluctuation in enrollment that happens. So that's us putting these numbers on a per employee per month basis so that you can get a good idea of how things are trending. You can see the claims cost on a per employee per month basis are actually down 4% over where they were last year. And if we add in those fixed costs again are what we pay Wellmark to pay claims, rent the network, customer service, ID cards, all of those things. Once we add that in, and that would include stop loss, we're actually coming in right flat compared to where we were last year, where we ended up. So overall, the plan is running well. The next section down is looking at stop loss reimbursements. So you can see there, during the 2021 and 2022 plan year, we had a $75,000 specific deductible, meaning anytime a member exceeded that, that's when stop loss kicked in. We did increase that to $100,000 in 2023. And we had only one person breach that last year, but unfortunately that did result in $1.1 million in reimbursements. So even though we just had one, it was still a really heavy year from a stop loss perspective. Again, this year so far, we have not had any individuals, but we will show you what some alternative stop loss levels look like. Not that we're necessarily recommending an increase, but it is something that we evaluate and look at every year. Are there any questions on the numbers before I move forward with the actual renewal?
You can tell me if I'm looking at this the right way. I'm comparing the very last line per employee per month. If I look at the fiscal 25 column, 1,296, that's what Wellmark would have estimated,
Yes.
right? And our actuals are coming in the red line up in the middle there,
Yes.
1,009.
Yep.
And just looking historically over the last 4 years, Wellmark's estimates are consistently a lot higher than where our
Yes.
actuals are.
Yep.
So what's driving that? Why are Wellmark's estimates so far off when we've been so consistent?
Yeah, so there's a couple things on that. One is just the group size. On average, the city and IMU have about 125 employees enrolled in the plan, give or take. Wellmark does not view that as large enough to really be that creditable. So when you're a self-funded plan, generally, larger self-funded plans may, the law of large numbers applies. We'll just put it that way. So the more bodies that we have on the plan, the more predictable our claims are going to be. Having 125 employees on the plan, Wellmark's really only giving you about 50% credit for how you've historically ran. They're basing the other half of that on their book of business. So the city has run more favorably than the book of business has, but because of that demographic factor, they're increasing that just because of your size. The other,
I would get that from if it was just a 1 year type of difference, that would make sense to me. But when we've had 4 years of, and I don't know if the same applies if you go further back, but it appears to be very, very consistent that we're significantly lower.
yeah, they, at your group size, they just really don't look at it that way because 1 year can really change things. And I think historically there have been, kind of some ups and downs with claims. We'll show you a historical look back. But with 100-ish people on the plan, you're not at the size that Wellmark's ever going to give you 100% credibility. We don't start to see that up until you get over 1,000 employees even.
Is that something that Holmes Murphy can push on our behalf to, I understand they don't want to go to 100%, but can they go from 50 to 60?
Yeah, we can certainly go back to them and ask for underwriting to give that more consideration. We don't necessarily set budget off of these numbers, but it is what our egg factors are based on for that worst case.
And that's my point is that
Mhm.
it's clearly not a very accurate figure
Mhm.
that we're basing some decisions on.
Yep, we can certainly go back to them and see if they would be willing to change the weighting on that factor. The other thing that I would add in is Holmes Murphy reverses out those rebates and stop loss credits. So Wellmark is definitely taking stop loss into account when they're coming up with your claim factors. But when we come up with our factor, we're taking out prior stop loss reimbursements and prior pharmacy credits, and Wellmark does not do that. So that's going to lead to a little bit of a discrepancy as well.
I'm gonna ask you a stupid question, but, so the difference is about 22.13% to what Adam is being referenced here. So, that's what the carrier is projecting, but we're actually, what was we say our premium was per employee, or I didn't.
It's right out of 1,000 per employee.
Yeah, 1,071, I think it was.
Yep, that's what budget has been set at.
Yeah. So the difference then that comes into play, they're basing their insurance rates obviously off of that 1296.84. And back to what was mentioned here, I think I agree 100%. You guys need to go back and ask them to take a look at that. I think a little bit of bit of a concern.
Yeah, we can certainly ask them, given your credit or your history. I think it really is a factor that underwriting looks at as far as your size, just because all it takes is, a few individuals that can really sway that number. You have run well, so obviously want to give you guys credit where credit is due there.
I think the other side of that argument is that as we bring on new people, they are trending our total age of our population is getting younger in a lot of ways. I would think if you look at that demographic and apply that as well, I know in our police department, a lot of those guys are fairly young and haven't even gone through the academy yet. So I think there's some demographics there. I don't know IMU where you guys are with your numbers, but I think the same is probably true. We're hiring younger people all the time. Our department heads and some of our management is in the other side of that, but I think overall, I think our age demographic is getting younger, and I think that's part of the reason you're seeing a fairly consistent and even a lowering of some of the things that we're going through.
Yeah, we did evaluate your average age. It's down very slightly, but it's fairly consistent. When I say slightly, like half a year. I think it's been in that 42. Do you remember what it was? Yeah. It's stayed fairly consistent. We had that same thought when we met with the HR group, but the average age has stuck pretty consistent over the last 4 years.
Okay. Perception is a little different than reality.
We thought the same thing.
Yeah,
So,
there you go. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so jumping ahead to the medical plan design, I know we've had the same conversation in years past. The plan that's offered is a qualified high deductible health plan, which means it's compatible with a health savings account. And part of that means that the IRS dictates minimum deductible and out-of-pocket levels. That is changing again for 2025. So the middle column there that you can see marked as required, at a minimum, we have to increase the single deductible and out-of-pocket maximum up from $3,200 to $3,300. So a $100 increase for that single level. The requirement does not apply to the family level, but we are making the recommendation that we update that and increase that by $200. What we don't want to get, because that family level is not indexed necessarily, it is, but we're far enough away that we're not going to get to the point where we have to change that for quite some time. What we don't want to get is a single and a family deductible and out of pocket that are too close together. Industry standard is that the family is double single. So we're not quite to that point yet. You can see we're recommending at $6,200 just to have that small increase there compared to what industry standard would be of $6,600. That will be a decision point that we'll revisit later in the presentation as well. But that's a decision that will be needed if we just increase the single or if we tick up the family level a little bit as well. Okay, so here are the actual renewal numbers from Wellmark. I will caveat that 2024 costs, those are also Wellmark's contracted numbers. So that does not reflect what the city and IMU are actually budgeting at. That is the contract that we purchased from Wellmark. The total fixed costs are increasing 11.5%, which equates to about $50,000 annually. That comes from the increase to the medical administrative fee. You can see that's going from $50.75 PEPM up to $53 per employee per month. That's kind of a standard 2% increase that Wellmark applies to their renewals. Network access fees, so what we pay to rent the network, and your pharmacy benefit manager fee is staying flat. Stop loss is where we're seeing a little bit larger increase on that. So you can see increasing from $210.67 per employee per month up to $242.48 per employee per month. Part of that is just trend. So if we think about a fully insured plan, average trend on that right now is going to be 8-ish%, which means if you've run well, we know that, medical and pharmacy costs are not staying flat. Those are increasing. So for a group that runs favorably, the renewal would, start out at 8% and then go, up or down from there, depending on other factors like demographics. While you are a self-funded plan, stop loss also operates in a similar manner. So the kind of trend increase from a stop loss perspective is 15%. If you break out the difference between the admin fees and the stop loss is getting about a 18% increase, so just over trend. We know we haven't had any reimbursements this year, but we are coming off of a really hot year where we did have over $1 million in reimbursements. So
Can I ask one clarification question?
Yep.
Two thousand twenty-four cost, is that the calendar year or is that the fiscal year?
that is your cost for the contracted year beginning July 1 of 2024.
Fiscal year.
Based on, yes, yep, it would be based on your plan renewal date of 7/1. I would say that is based on current enrollment at the time of renewal. So that does not reflect actual outputs from a fixed cost perspective. It's really a snapshot in time.
But so 2025 cost, that's really what they're projecting for July
7/1,
1st, 25 through June 30th.
June 30th. Yes,
26.
correct.
Okay.
The costs here that are proposed are not yet final. So what Wellmark does is they issue us an initial renewal based on where your claims are currently at. And then they reserve the right to change that until they have claims through March, which they finalize in early April. We do not historically see Wellmark make any changes unless there's something major that they see come on the plan. So these are not final, but likely will be the final numbers.
And one other, more for everybody here. So the difference, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the difference between the annual maximum cost and the expected cost is like $378,000. That's what we're at risk for. That's the maximum
Mhm.
amount because of our stop loss settings that we have. That's the most that we could go over and above that expected number in 1 year.
What was that number again?
It's $377,785.
378.
Yes, 378.
Well, I would remind you that you're not budgeting at Wellmark's number, so it's gonna be a little bit more than that, but given the numbers shown here, yes. It would be the difference between the maximum cost line and the expected cost line. You can see that Wellmark did actually hold your claim factors flat. So they did not increase what they expect that you will spend in that claim layer that you're responsible for. So overall, the increase to annual expected cost is 2.6%. Increase to maximum cost, which again, maximum is set based on the expected claim line, that Wellmark expected claims of 1.5 million. Maximum is essentially 125% of that, and then the fixed costs added back in. That's basically a 25% window there where the underwriter has to miss. If they miss beyond that 25%, then Wellmark is on the hook to pay any of those remaining claims. What we also do is break that out on a per employee per month expected level, just so you can see how that translates to where you're setting budget. And that's what that very bottom line is. So Wellmark is saying for 2025, we expect your claim cost there to be about $13.39 per employee per month. Where we've actually set budget is the $1,071.03. Again, we have not historically used Wellmark's numbers to set budget because they are a little bit more conservative than what we like to see. There are a few decisions that are more related to plan design that I wanted to cover before we jump into the budget specifically. The first one is a program called Prudent RX. This is a program that CVS offers. CVS is your pharmacy benefit manager. And essentially what this program does is it taps into some of the manufacturer's assistance and copay cards that are available to the members specifically as they're taking these drugs. What it does is for any specialty medication, they require you acquire it or fill it through CVS's specialty pharmacy. And then essentially, they make it look as though the drug isn't covered under the plan, so they can capitalize on how much the plan can use that manufacturer rebate card. So if the company knows the employee's out-of-pocket maximum is $3,300, they're only gonna put $3,300 on that card, and then the city and IMU are responsible for paying once the members hit, the manufacturer's like, okay, we're gonna be done paying too. This just kind of puts a false ceiling in there so that those claims can continue to be paid by the pharmacy copay assistance card. You have very low utilization of specialty drugs. So we see an estimated annual savings of just shy of $4,000. This isn't a program that we're recommending you put in place to save money. It's more of a proactive approach because specialty drugs are increasing, the cost is increasing at a very rapid rate. You're lucky enough that you don't have a lot of utilization of those drugs right now, but that could change at any point. Putting this program in place would really just eliminate disruption if we were decide to put it into place after we already have a problem, if that makes sense. Wellmark has added this program for their fully insured book of business. So any Wellmark fully insured plan already has this in place, and we've seen really high adoption for our self-funded plans as well. So that would be something that we would recommend. Again, there's not a strong case for savings there. It's more of a proactive approach to pharmacy spend.
So does that mean they have to go to a CVS then?
No, it's a mail order. It's a mail order CVS specialty pharmacy. Generally, specialty drugs are not available to be filled at a retail pharmacy, so they're coming mail order anyway. It's just a matter of where the employee goes to get that.
Okay.
The other thing that I want to circle back to is the pharmacy rebate discussion. So Wellmark has a new program that is being offered where they will allow you to, instead of receiving actual rebates, receive a rebate credit of $100 per employee per month. As a reminder, current rebates year to date are sitting at $54.45 per employee per month. If we look back historically over that, 3-year time period, we're at $63.35. So for majority of our groups, we're actually recommending that they leave the rebate credit on the table and keep receiving their actual rebates. But I think you're one group where it probably makes sense to take a look at receiving that actual credit. If we look at your average enrollment, that's going to be about $150,000 annually that you'll save in fixed costs, compared to anywhere from, 80 to 100 that you've seen come back in pharmacy rebates in the past. Now, I would caution and just say again, specialty utilization is always increasing. So even when we're close, maybe we're at 85, 90 per employee per month, we're still recommending that employers forego the credit and continue to receive actual rebates, because it just takes one prescription that could flip that the other way. But I think you're to the point where it might make sense to try that for a year. This is an annual enrollment decision. So next year at renewal, we could make the decision to go back the other way and continue receiving actual pharmacy rebates. But given you're sitting at nearly half of what the credit would be, I think it's something to consider for first.
Are there any cons to doing that?
Only that you forego actual rebates. So if you were to have a huge uptick in specialty utilization over the next year, you may lose. But you still are going to have that $150,000 credit coming back, where your actual admin fee invoice on a monthly basis would probably be a credit to the plan because it would outweigh all of your other administrative costs. We'll show you on the next few slides what that looks like from a budget perspective. I'm not sure you guys are gonna want to take the first glance at budget, just because I know we have that heavy reserve, but we're showing you what our actuarial model comes up with as a starting point. And then again, the family deductible and out-of-pocket maximum.
Can I ask another
Yeah.
question on that? Are there any things that our employees are gonna notice if we change?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll say no for now. You will see there's a bill right now that's been introduced to the Iowa legislature on PBM reform. And part of that bill is that members would receive those credits, those rebates at point of sale. So that will be yet to be seen what that would look like if that would come to fruition. That's obviously not been passed yet, but that could have an impact on this program in general that Wellmark is offering. And then family deductible and out-of-pocket max, again, that's just a decision point if we want to leave it at current of 6,000 or increase that to the recommended 6,200. You could also go higher than that. The thought behind that was if we're increasing family by 100, let's double that and increase family by 200. But that could go up, further than that if you wish to do so. Okay, so this is, and I know this is small, so I apologize, but this is really what our budgeting tool looks at from your historical claims perspective. So we're actually going all the way back to February of 2020 with this information. You'll see the first plot on the graph is February of 2021, and that is a rolling 12 number. So that's basically looking all the way back to, March of 2020 and pulling a 12-month rolling average to get that up to February of 2021. What we do is plot each month, and then we also put a regress trend line on there so you can see historically how you've run during that time frame. If we look at your historical all the way back to March of 2020, you're at a 14.1% increase from a trend perspective. So overall claims have trended up that 14%. If we look at our rolling 12, which is that red line there, you can see we're actually on a pretty steep downhill swing from a medical claims perspective at negative 16.4. Part of our budget tool is really to look at this. We're never going to pull forward negative trend, even if that's your experience, because it's just really not feasible for the long term. You are kind of an anomaly, I would say, so far. So what we do is we hold that flat. So instead of pulling in, negative trend, we're going to hold that flat rather than add in positive trend. The graph on the right-hand side, again, this is looking just at medical claims, then plots basically percentiles of where that prior coverage level has been. Think of these almost as confidence intervals. So that 25th percentile is saying 25% of the time, our claims on a per employee per month basis were at or below this level. Same with the 50th and 75th. What most groups start at is the 50th percentile because that's on average what an insurance carrier would do. That's what their actuarial team would kind of look at that 50th percentile. If you look at actual, which is kind of that bottom point there, you can see that's at 610 compared to your 25th percentile of 694. You're quite a bit below your lowest point that you've ever been. If we then look at the pharmacy on that bottom section there, similar story. I would say your regress trend is quite a bit flatter at 2%, but your rolling 12 again is down quite a bit there at a 14% negative trend. And then again, you're at 117 compared to the 25th percentile of 120. Obviously, from the pharmacy side, you can see those numbers are a lot closer. So as we play with where we want to set budget, increasing from the 25th to the 50th is $8 per employee per month. That's not really going to change the tool all that much, but where it will is on the medical when there's, a $60 swing per employee per month between those two levels. Overall, the plan is running well is really what this tells us. Now, what this does is then kind of spit out a summary based on some assumptions that we put in there. So again, we add in the carriers trend here. So Wellmark used 8.25% trend on the medical, 5% on the pharmacy. If we kind of start at the left-hand side here, this is looking at our current year to date. That column that says budget is truly that. Where did we set our budget? We're at about 1,074 per employee per month. We also take out the employee contribution so that you can see what that equates to as far as plan spend for committee and IMU. If we net out that 157 in employee contributions, and again, that's an average, we're looking at, we know employees pay a different amount based on which tier they're enrolled in, but that's on average what they're paying based on where people are sitting. We're at 917 per employee per month. About 124 people or employees enrolled. That puts our overall budget at about 1.6 million for the year. The reforecast is the next column, and that's just us saying if we were to end the plan year today and finish out the year with, kind of what we've seen from a claims perspective and just adding that trend in, how far under budget would we be? Usually this isn't a negative number for most groups. Usually it means there's a deficit there. But with the reforecast, you can see we're actually predicting we end the plan year closer to that 1,000 2020 22 for about a 5% decrease over where we've set budget, which equates to about $77,000. If you move further to the right, the projection category, that is really just taking into account trend, where we've set the coverage level. So we did do the 25th percentile. Again, that's where you've set it historically. Mostly, well, you've run well, and we know that we have that reserve fund built up. So we've been pretty aggressive in setting the budget. That is calling for a 9.3% increase. You can see comparing that, we're at about 1,174, comparing that to Wellmark's 1,033 or 1,300-ish. So we're still coming in, quite a bit less than what Wellmark's projecting. I'd say we're landing kind of somewhere in the middle of where you're at and where Wellmark thinks. That's what our actuarial tool comes up with. The projection with changes column is a couple things. So we've kept the HSA contribution in there the same. We increased the deductible and out-of-pocket maximum based on what we had showed on the prior slide. And then this is what builds in that rebate credit of $100 per employee per month. So you can see that brings down that increase to 5.5%, or about 88,000. Now, this is where there's room for some conversation. I know historically the effort has been to spend down that reserve a little bit further. I think there's, upwards of almost $3 million in the reserve. And as Adam pointed out, our worst case scenario is that we dip into that reserve by, $400,000. What we want to be careful with and why we're having this conversation versus just telling you, looks good, keep things flat, is because we could get to the point where we are getting far enough off from Wellmark's expected that when things start to go south, we would be looking at a much larger increase. So part of our job is to make sure that you're aware, what risk are we taking to the plan and what will we have to do to right size that if the time ever comes where we need to. And that's where we just want to, point this out that we're starting to stray quite a bit from Wellmark's expected. And while that's okay, if we do get our reserve to a level where we're not confident that we're going to keep using that as a buy down strategy, we could be, looking at a year where we're increasing premiums by 50%. So we just want to be mindful of that. I think it would be, helpful. I know there's been discussion in the past of do we have a number that we're comfortable with to get to before we start making some of those changes. And I'm not sure if that's ever been established, but I know that the reserve is still very healthy and we're not anywhere close to that number that had been established. So it's really just something that we wanted to get some discussion going and see what your thoughts are on how aggressive we continue to be with the budget.
We did premium holidays last year. Do you know the impact to our reserve?
I think you had pulled that number, but I don't have that in front of me.
It's about 128,000
Overall?
for the month of December.
But we
For
did
one
two.
premium holiday.
The other one was in June.
One
Since it
was
was last fiscal year, I didn't
We
look
had
at
two
that
of them.
today.
One at the end of the fiscal year rate and then one.
So we will have two, so we can double that number.
If you decide to have one in June, yeah.
Here's how I'm thinking about this. We talked about and established already that the difference because of our stock loss, our maximum at risk is like 378,000. Your point is right, that we are setting premium rates less than what is expected. Caution on that though, because I think our history shows that we're consistently below that. But if we really were to come on and at expected, that would be roughly about $500,000. If I'm doing it correctly. So add those two numbers together, 900,000 rounded up would be our maximum at risk in 1 year. My understanding is the balance in the reserve is projected to be about 2.7 at the end of this year. So we have 3 times that sitting in the reserve. And I that 500,000 number,
No, that's a great point. Underwriters don't generally miss by 25%. We have people, I can't say I've been doing this for 30 years, but we have people at Homes Murphy that have been doing this for 30 years and never had a group hit ag. So it's rare, especially given Walmart's conservative nature.
Chris, did you have a point?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think traditionally, like hitting ag is a 1% type of event. So I know for a couple of years, my position was if we set our reserves at, there's three components, one of those being the maximum. And the code section that we file our actuary, the 109 or 209, there's it's functionally a runoff. If we stop today, we'd have runoff, and they estimate that about $250,000. I would assume it's pretty close to that now. And then there's a 1% event of hitting your ag excess of the 400. And then, so if you did that 2 years, we got 2 years of back-to-back 1% events are just astronomically unlikely to hit those 2 years in a row. That comes up to really close to that $1 million that you were talking about, and the likelihood that we would ever be there in that kind of worry is 1% of 1%.
Plus, we'd have the annual opportunity to revisit where we're at. So it wouldn't be like we would just continue to have a stop point to say, this is our experience. Do we need to do something now differently? Yeah, true.
I don't think we have set a target, but that's where I would suggest that that a reasonable target should be set at. It's around $1 million.
Generally you want to have at least 3 months of just claims in your reserve. You don't need to have fixed costs in your reserve. And the point of that is really because if the plan would ever end, or we would reach a point where we wanted to move back to being fully insured, you're going to have claims, you're going to have a tail, claims that were incurred in May, June that don't yet get paid by July 1st, and you would still be responsible for paying those. So the point of a reserve balance is really, of course, to help you in the months that are higher, but really it shouldn't be, you shouldn't need that big of a reserve unless you actually leave the funding arrangement. And that's where you generally want 3 months.
So that methodology would suggest even less than $1 million, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our total claims are projected to be $1.5 million.
Sometimes public entities generally are more conservative in that, but at most 6, at most.
Suggests that there's opportunities to find ways to use those excess funds in the reserve. Premium holidays, we've been doing 2, we could do more than that. You haven't gotten to this yet, and I apologize for jumping ahead on you, but right now, my understanding is we're only pulling health insurance premiums out of the fund. We're not doing dental and vision out of the fund, so we're paying those out of our operating budget. I think under the regulations for that fund, I think that would be, but that's what that would have to do. Suggestion.
I think anything we can do to help operating budgets would be welcome. Especially where we are with House File 70, how limited we have become.
Well, I was thinking.
Yeah. So. Anything else?
I'm not sure, that's where the staff will have to do the research to see what fits under the resolution.
Sure.
We weren't sure that the other components would qualify.
Yeah, there's also short-term, long-term disability and life insurance. My guess is those would not qualify, but again, I think staff can do some research on that to see.
And on the employee side, if we can still offer some level of premium holiday.
But we've been doing it on both the employee and the employer. Correct?
Yes, I believe that's right. We did
So
too.
that's, if we do more of those, that's savings, that's budget savings as well.
Adam, what would be a reasonable number if there's such a thing? And I think you kind of hit on that earlier, but I reiterate that we could maybe pull that surplus down to a level. What do you think that number is, or do you have a feeling for that?
Yeah, and we obviously don't want to take 1.6 million out of it all in 1 year.
No, absolutely not.
But would it be reasonable to pull, you know, 400,000 or 500,000 out, in a year would, you know, making decisions like we're doing today, that would. Give me.
And that would entail a number of things such as the premium holidays, multiple premium holidays, and then if we could also pull the other two components out and put that out of the operating budget, then that would probably pull that down, is what you're looking at.
I think health, dental and vision would be how much in here?
Yeah, dental is about 120,000, but that does. Part of that is paid by employees as well, and then vision is about 20,000.
But still, the employees would still pay their portion.
Yeah, so it would be less than that because that doesn't take it, that's total annual cost. That doesn't include employer breakout.
Except in the times, of course, when we give employee holidays, right? Right. Correct?
I don't know historically if that's
Just wouldn't
included.
put
in just-
anything in.
Yeah, just medical.
I got you what you're saying. You're right. Right.
You could, if
Oh,
that's
oh,
what
could
you
put that, yeah, we
decide
could
to
put the
do.
employee portion in. That's not huge dollars, but
Right, it's
would
not
be
huge.
appreciated by our employees.
Right.
So do a premium holiday for all coverage line.
They go into the health
The
insurance
health
fund.
Assuming that we
lines.
would have dental and vision covered by the
Right.
fund also.
I'll jump ahead, we can keep the budget conversation alive, kind of relates to that. So as I mentioned, the specific stop loss level is currently at 100,000. We did ask Walmart to quote 110 and 125. You can see at the level of 110, there is estimated savings of about 10,000. The fixed cost savings is 34,000, but for every person that we have reached that, we're paying an additional $10,000. So essentially what we're saying here is, you'd save 34 if we had two people in that level. We'd save about $10,000. If we jump up to 125, you can say the fixed cost savings is 75,000. Estimated savings overall, once we add back in that claim liability, is about 21,000. These estimates are based on a Monte Carlo simulation that we do, so it's all of Holmes Murphy's book of business and all of the claims data saying, we think it would be this, but this is not specific to the city of Indianola's experience. Our recommendation on this is actually to leave it at 100,000. From looking at the numbers that you have not had people generally breach this number, so you certainly could increase it. $100,000 is probably even slightly over benchmark for a group of your size. And in addition to that, Walmart doesn't let you go backwards. So if we're at a spot in 3 years where we're like, oof, things have kind of been rough the last few years, we can't go to Walmart with a business case of we're struggling. It would have to be, we've had a reduction in workforce or something like that to make the business case to decrease it.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
this might go on for a minute.
We had 100,000 last year. We've left that for how many years? 100,000.
The medical accrual, that's really our budget. So again, we've included an option here. We're not necessarily recommending because I think there's some warranted discussion on if you do actually increase the budget. If you want to see any alternates, we can certainly provide that. So, the 25th is generally as low as we go. I don't know that it's really gonna help from a modeling perspective. So if you're wanting to leave rates flat, I don't know that the budget's ever gonna really tell you to do that. I was earlier in a meeting today. I did this for like 40 minutes, so I was just hoping I could hold off a little longer. Employee contributions, so currently employees pay 17% of total premium. Regardless of what's decided, from the budget perspective, we do have a recommendation to keep employee rates flat. Just because the employer fund has actually been decreased the last 2 years, but employee rates held flat. So even if you decide to bump that up a little bit, you could probably keep employee rates flat.
I had a question on that. On the previous slide, it indicated 15.6%. I was thinking it was closer to 15%, so that 15.6 made sense.
This was probably based on, so this is a function of the accrual rates that are set. So it's 17% of the accrual rate. What is on that previous slide is actually going to indicate what the plan paid based on how you're running compared to what employees paid. So since you are running a little bit below budget there, it's gonna be less.
Okay.
So two different things, really. If the plan runs better, that just means the employee or, you spend less. Reserve balance, we've obviously already talked about this, premium holiday. HSA contributions are pulled out of that reserve balance, so this has been kind of an ongoing discussion if we leave those at 2,600. The concern over that's really just been that the employees might think that's expected going forward, and really it's been kind of a 1-year plan that we've just extended each year. So really just something for you guys to consider. I don't think the reserve balance warrants decreasing that, but it's more of a consideration as to if this is now becoming kind of a built-in thing that they're gonna expect going forward. Other things we could probably talk about on that too, and some things that have surfaced just HR level are wellness incentives. So, are there a way for us to provide some additional wellness pieces to employees to kind of spend down that budget? Again, it would really depend on what that reserve fund can be used for. But there are some other cities that allow, employees a balance to buy a new pair of tennis shoes or buy some gym equipment, things like that, that more, impact health or wellness. So just something to consider if there is a desire to do that. I know the city and IMU have historically done the biometric screenings and then the employees get that incentive. But if there's a desire to use some of that fund to fund some other things, that could be something that's explored too.
Could we use that fund possibly to pay? Or like, I know one of the employee benefits is the wellness center membership.
Already done through this fund.
It is through
It's
the
actually
fund
something I
already.
want to talk about later.
Okay.
So if we were to do something like that, who administers that? Self-administered, or is that something that we have to pay somebody to do?
Either way, there are vendors that have what's called like a lifestyle spending account. That's kind of what they refer to it now. And you pay a set admin fee. It's generally gonna be like $2 per employee per month for them to administer that for you.
Can this fund be used to pay for like the EAP? Or is it already? Employee assistance program?
It's not, but that would be something to probably add to the list to research. Okay. The HSA vendor, you're currently using TrueBank for your HSA. So all the contributions that come out of payroll, so employer and employee payroll contributions are routed to TrueBank. There is no annual fee, but we are currently reviewing what investment options would be available through TrueBank. There are some standalone vendors. We've listed a few here that we went to quote that have investment options that are similar to a 401k investment portfolio. And so there's been, I think, a desire to potentially look at that with how much is going into those accounts from both the employee and the match and the just lump sum contribution. There's probably being some missed opportunity on the investment option piece. So that's something that's being investigated with TrueBank. If that is not an option, there are vendors where you would pay an administrative fee just to have all contributions routed to that account. It's minimal dollars. Again, it's a couple bucks per employee per month, so it would amount to about, 25 to 3,500 annually, depending on the vendor you went with. There are investment fees that are then associated with that, but that's paid by the employee out of the returns, if they choose to take advantage of the investment option.
The investment options, is that an issue that we've identified just, or is that something that we've had employees complain about not having?
I think we've only had one employee mention it, correct me if I'm wrong. But just given the volume or the sum of the dollars that.
It wasn't a complaint, it was more of an inquiry, like, does our current HSA vendor allow this opportunity? It was more of a question, not a complaint.
Yeah, so most banks, most like financial institutions, banks offer a set return rate similar to like a savings account. So it's gonna be pretty minimal, maybe 0.5%. Whereas if you actually pay a custodian to administer the HSA, you're gonna have more significant investment portfolios available to you.
Like Fidelity or
What kind of risks are you talking about there?
What type of what?
What risks go into that investment portfolio then at that point in time too?
Usually just like a 401k,
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
get to select the type of
It's the
investment.
individual is choosing the investment, not
You
us.
can do a target date fund, you can be more aggressive, more conservative, up to the individual. They do, all of these make it easy where you can, similar to a 401k, you can do a target date fund if you don't know what you're doing, like I don't. Target date fund all day for me.
I do too.
Yep.
I also, I hope that they're able to come up with some investment options.
Yeah, so I think what they're reviewing is more of like a sit down investment option, so it wouldn't be, as automatic as what one of these other vendors would be, but it would at least provide employees who want to do it with some options, so. I agree with you. I think, of course, we want to keep supporting the local community, so this is something that we've discussed, but if we're able to achieve the end goal here through True Bank, that's the goal.
Come back with.
The dental renewal, so current annual spend is about 115,000. We are getting a 3% increase, just about $118,000 total annually. So 3%, but much smaller overall dollar spend. We did get a quote from Delta Dental, just because we quoted the vision through them as well, and it was a 27% increase over current. So we do feel like Mutual is probably the best option to renew at that 3% increase. That's really being driven based on the loss ratio. Vision is where we do have a little bit more opportunity for discussion. So the current plan is with Avisus, and that's at about $20,000 in annual spend. They did issue a 10% increase. Again, we're talking very small dollars, but this actually stems from more of some administrative issues that we've had. They had a kind of a portal revamp overhaul where HR did not have access to the portal for several months, and it actually did get down to the member level as well. Avisus has resolved that, I think, for the most part. Maybe still a few billing issues, but that did actually just kind of prompt us to go look at the market and see what else is out there. Vision plans have come a long way since you've had this plan in place with Avisus. So we felt like it was worth shopping to at least make sure that we're offering, the best bang for the buck to employees. We do have an alternate option through Delta Dental. It does not require that we add the dental plan as well. So this is really just a standalone vision quote. And it's actually coming in at a 9% decrease over the current rates with a couple of plan enhancements. So those are the sheets that you have in front of you as separate handouts. Just included this so you can kind of see what some of the plan enhancements are. We did also look at VSP and IMED, but Delta Dental is kind of the route that we're leaning with the enhancements that are offered there. One of the big ones is the frame allowance. They'll increase that from the current $100 allowance up to $150, which is a nice benefit for employees. And then they have some set copays on some of the newer coatings that they generally automatically put on lenses. So things like the UV protection, anti-reflective coating, those premium progressive lenses. So we did include the entire quote from Delta Vision as well, because there's just too much to include on a spreadsheet. Our spreadsheet is really more as a quick comparison, but we did include the full proposal for you to review as well. So ultimately, that would be the recommendation. We did do a network comparison just to, make sure that employees would have adequate access. Vision providers do have just different networks. So some of them are, targeting more of your retail locations, Target Optical, Pearl Vision, those type of things. And some are more of the mom and pop shops, but we did do the comparison and feel like while there may be some specific providers that are no longer in the network, there's adequate access for every employee.
Has the experience with Delta better than what we had with the pieces?
Yeah, we have, Murphy has quite a few groups with Delta Vision and we would have no concerns with that. They do provide ID cards, which is sometimes a point of contention. I don't know why, but some vision carriers don't provide ID cards and it really throws employees into a tizzy. They do. So we wouldn't have any concerns over the process with Delta Vision, both from an HR perspective and the employee. Again, we always just remember because there probably will be one employee whose provider is not in network. There's adequate access, but that doesn't necessarily mean every single provider today is going to be in network tomorrow if we make that plan change. Okay, the last little bit here are basic life, short-term disability and long-term disability. All of those are renewing with no change. So we don't have any increase to our costs on those lines and we're not proposing any change to the benefits there. As far as the next step, so the intent of this meeting is not necessarily to make final decisions. If you have decisions or want to, chat about any of these points any further, we can certainly do that right now. But really just wanted to use this up as an opportunity to educate and start kind of finding a general direction for renewal. So we can finalize those in, late March, early April timeframe. So then we can work towards getting everything finalized and ready for open enrollment to start in May.
Looking for discussion from us, I assume.
Floor is yours.
The West, or we only just talking about comment?
I'd say, open it up for general comments real quick if anyone has anything. If not, then we can walk through our recommendation list and unless we have any reason not to vote on those.
Bring up your.
And Don, do you want to bring up your?
Yeah, I can do that now. So one thing that was brought up to me by some FTE employees, full-time employees, is that the health insurance fund is funded by full-time employees and that with the wellness fund that the part-time employees do also pull from that fund that do not contribute to that to pay for the wellness, their membership. And they brought it up as a fairness thing of if we provide into the health insurance fund, why are part-time employees pulling from that fund when they don't contribute? So we did pull that through. The city, it does look like that across the board that whether it's a part-time or full-time employee, that it looks like the majority of every one of your employees do get that pulled directly from the health insurance fund. And it's a significantly smaller amount for IMU, but in general, the entire amount that is pulled from the health insurance fund is $182,000. I know it is one thing that we are looking to cut down that fund, but this is almost more of a consideration of our full-time employees that do put that.
How
in
many
there.
part-time employees are we talking about?
So we don't have the number on here on what's part-time versus not. Because the way it's broken down, or at least what I was given, was there's a transfer in single city membership.
By membership type.
Yeah. So, but the city has 70 single membership and 12 youth city memberships. I would assume the youth, they are single. So are part-time employees. And for IMU, we have a total of 7 single memberships. So it is a significant difference, but regardless of that,
But single doesn't mean.
it doesn't. But it's more likely because only part-time what qualified for single. So we can't even look at like a family or 2 adult because they would not qualify for that.
I would think we'd want to get the number part-time. I mean, this is something we come back to. We're not having to make a decision tonight on that.
I just feel like if it's 1 or 2, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, so
Well, it's at least,
I don't think you can make an assumption just single member is part-time person though.
but not every single member is a part-time. I don't look at it as even if it's 10 people. I look at it simply as those funds are supplied by full-time employees.
I understand, but what's the administration of, I mean, do you just say, no, we don't provide it to you, or we say?
No, I think at that point, then each entity makes their own decision on how they handle the part-time employees, and those funds could then be pulled from the appropriate department or general
Do
fund.
we offer health insurance to part-time?
And why are we even paying for the part-time employees to have that benefit?
Is that just an oversight?
Sorry, no, I'm
yeah.
sorry for city side.
Yeah, no, I think in general, when it came down to it, it was the vote of all employees, and that's how we kind of
Available.
wrote it. What didn't get thought about was who's actually
Who's actually
providing
funding it.
into those
Who's paying?
health insurance funds.
Right.
Or who would be requesting access?
Yeah, so, and like I said, you can see that the IMU, it's about 22 employees out of 40. And it looks like Jackie, is it everyone with the city?
I don't know. And I do want to point out that the part-time employee list would also include the Board of Trustees and the city
Correct.
council members.
Yeah, so those funds, if that stayed, would have to come out more of a general fund.
My thought is, yes, it's absolutely true that our full-time employees are who are contributing to the fund, but it's also IMU and the city that are contributing to their fund. That's my thought is. Those are the funds that are being used to pay for them.
Rather than what the employees themselves pay.
But I can see how some employees might do that.
So something just to take into consideration. Personally, I feel that the entities should take care of the part-time employees, and since the health insurance fund is funded by FTEs, that FTEs should be the only ones that get to use their health insurance.
17% of it.
Yeah.
Cities and IMU's funding, right?
But it's for the FTEs. Cause
Well, it's for our employees. I mean, I think you have to be careful about nickeling, diming it down to this category of employee versus. Right.
well, it's worth getting how many part-time employees, if we can get that. Thanks, Jackie.
I would agree on that.
I agree with Adam that, and with Lori too, that the city's still contributing 83% to that fund. And so, you're talking about city employees here regardless.
And we're encouraging wellness. and we're
Exactly.
Encouraging, good behavior. So
Well, I'm not saying take away the benefit. I'm just saying where those funds come from.
well,
Well, it's still.
A fund.
Yeah, the fund, because 83% we're contributing. Between IMU and the city of Indianola, you got 83% of that is actually coming out of funds that city's putting into that program as well.
But
yes, the
until we
employees are
use that.
contributing. I think it's probably a explanation and messaging about what that fund, how that fund is built. As much as trying to make sure we have fairness in how we distribute
I don't
it.
disagree with your point. I just think that Lori's right. It's how you message that, and the fact that the city also is contributing into that fund, and so is IMU. And that portion is what you could make the argument that we're paying those part-time employees out of rather than what the full-time employees pay into.
I think we have to talk about what our goals are. We want a
Exactly.
healthy staff and we want people to be able to be engaged.
And I'm not against providing the benefit. It's just simply if we never put that fund in there or that in there, it was never touched by part-time employees. So and that was only what, 2 years ago? So prior to that, there were no part-time employees pulling from that fund.
Fair, that's fair. I mean, I just think we need to look at it and have a better, rather than just throwing that out, making a decision, I think we need to have some data and understanding what we
I'm
want to
fine
do.
with that. Yeah, absolutely.
And it is a nice perk for our part-time employees that maybe don't get full-time benefits.
Yeah, again, not looking to pull it away, but each entity then decides how they fund those part-time employees benefit.
We had no money, Tom. Have you not been paying attention?
That's what I'm thinking, like.
It comes out of insurance.
Pull from the $3 million reserve.
Yeah,
We should move on.
Well, I think it's important that we keep healthy employees. If you look at our experience and our trends, that's what's keeping our claims down. We want to keep that.
right.
So,
I think historically though, they were down before we started doing that too, though.
Yes, that's
yeah,
part of why we were doing that.
true,
But
but we want to
what we contribute,
stay in that direction.
so we have to contribute so much per employee. Are we contributing so much for the part-time employees too then? So it doesn't, by doing that, it increases our actual overall budget expense.
Good, yeah. I think that's correct, are we not? We're also contributing for our part-time employee.
We only contribute into the health insurance fund.
That's what I'm saying.
124 employees, and we're well over that on how many get the fund.
Our part-time employees, and that's more than 124.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it only be part-time benefited? Not all of our part-time employees.
No, the
Part-time
policy says
benefit.
they have to work a minimum number of hours a month to qualify.
I can get those numbers. Let's get the numbers back and we'll come back and talk about it. So I think, let's walk through the recommendations here if we can and see where you are on these things. I guess that's my next thought.
Page 9 is probably the best place to start, kind of outline.
Page 9?
Yep.
The recommendation was not to adopt the Prudent RX.
It actually would be to adopt it, yeah, to.
and you said it's,
Not much savings,
More-
but long-term benefits.
Yeah. Yeah, more of a proactive approach.
Yeah, as well.
Especially as more drugs go to specialty. Right?
Yes, yep.
a yes on that one.
What about the pharmacy rebate credit?
I'd say we take our annual
Yes.
credit since it's also not something that we have to do we can
Correct.
reverse that.
Go
Yeah,
back.
we'll have data to show you if it was the right decision or not. And then we'll also have data to see how we're trending towards the next year.
Yeah. 150.
Okay, what do you want to do with family deductible and out of pocket?
Sense. The recommendation.
Do you disagree? Okay. On page 12, then is everybody? 100,000 on stop loss?
It's not, we can't go
We
back.
can't go back,
Yeah.
Go backwards.
so leave
Can't
it.
go backwards, but yeah.
If you go up, one loss is gonna cost you more than the increase.
So stay with the recommended then, 100,000.
Yes.
Medical accrual, what do you want to do? Current, so I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Folks.
Yes.
Good. Employee contributions, keep it flat. Agreed. Okay. Reserve balance, stay at the HSA of 2,600, is that what you want to do, or do you want?
Maybe leave it.
On that one, I want to point out, you said this, but I just want to make sure, because not, I think, Steve, you may have been the only member that was involved when we started doing this. that was intended to be a 1-year deal.
It was intended to be.
Yeah,
That
it was.
we were using the reserve balance at that time for this. It's now been going on 4 or 5 years.
I remember you saying that last year, Adam.
I'm fine leaving it as.
This would be the 4th year.
Well, we just have to keep reminding, it's not guaranteed every year. Okay, so leave it as is then, is that what I'm hearing? Stay with True Bank or go, I'm sorry, what?
We go back to the premium holiday.
Premium holiday, I'm sorry. Thoughts there?
Support doing 2 again.
We were looking at the potential of doing 4. It would, one, help you guys, but,
I would, yes.
2,
We have the fund.
we have the funds and the discussion was to assist the way that it's done, doing it October, November, December, or some 3-month period so that it doesn't have to be changed on the HR status each time if we did it 1 per quarter, and then still do it at the end of the year in June.
We like that idea.
I hesitate because I know the last time we got reserve spend happy where we ended up. It was part of the day.
This is part of,
I know.
That was before stop losses were put in place.
So I know what happens when we get reserve spend happy. And so that's where my hesitation is at.
we have an annual opportunity to revisit this. So we're in a position this year, you guys could use the relief, we have the dollars. So I would agree with the recommendation of.
So that lowers the reserves by what, about 712,000 then?
No, not nowhere close to that.
I think they said it was 100 and
About 125
per holiday.
per holiday.
And we're already due on.
We're doing 2 already.
We haven't lowered our funds at all.
So it'd be another 250 that we'd pull.
Yes,
I also
we
hesitate.
continue to put into it, so it
Right.
continues to build even though we're taking these out.
And that's part of the reason the fund remains so high is we continue to contribute to it. We've made the goal, or we've tried to take some dollars to decrement it, but we haven't made any sort of impact to it.
We can still vote on that each time. This is
Right.
our recommendation.
But
So
this
the same
year-
thing, when June comes up, we could vote to no, but we'd be watching that fund as we go.
Yeah, and I hesitate too, because then it kind of becomes the expectation, right?
Much better.
Again, it's messaging and how we set it up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really can put your story out there and say these are annual types of conversations, it's not a
Yeah.
guarantee.
And honestly, with everything we're looking at having to do with budget cuts, maybe it's something to give a little extra morale.
I'm tired of hearing about morale. I'm sorry.
Well,
Just sick of hearing about it. It's the same everywhere.
you can be sick of it,
Yeah.
but it's a fact.
But in light of our budget situation, I think this is a good offset. And it helps every budget across the enterprise too.
I get that. I'm throwing the cautionary flag about reserve spend happy and what that got us into
Go for it.
present day. So,
Duly noted.
huh?
That's a duly noted.
That's all I'm doing is just throwing that
That's
cautionary
fair.
flag.
Chris, what are your comments?
I was just gonna kind of throw out maybe a happy medium between the two. You know, we're currently committed to doing 2. If we enhance that to 3, we can make that the October, November and December for the obvious benefit. And then we'd come around to next June, that would be the July, or that would be perhaps and make that an optional one. That we look at the budget and the fund balance coming into June and say, are we gonna do the June one? It kind of meets maybe a happy medium between the two.
Currently, they're still all just optional, correct? Like, we aren't required to do any of them. We vote on them each.
Right, every year.
Well, not every year.
Every time we
Each time we
do it.
do it.
Right.
So we would vote on this 4 times or 3 times or 2 times. So it's the idea right now.
I appreciate the option looking at 4 and personally.
Ron, where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, we voted on it every time it comes up, right? So we can look at the fund and we can make that decision at that time. So, yeah,
3 or 4?
I'm for it.
4. Need your.
The option, I like the 3, look in the option of 4. I just wanna make sure that the city and IMU align though.
Well,
You
yeah,
know, I know we had an issue last year,
I think it was just
Potential, yeah.
the wording of it, and we gotta figure it out.
so I just wanna make sure we align.
Is the
Yeah,
issue.
what was
I
there?
think,
So there was whether the employees got it as well as so.
we'll get it figured out.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure
But
we
this
align.
would be, for clarity, holiday across the board.
Yeah.
Correct.
Mhm.
So
We
good
can
for
vote
the
for-
option of 4 to vote on each one.
Yeah.
And the timing then would be,
Do we wanna do
Obviously.
November, December, January, since the bills tend to come in January versus
no
October?
idea.
oh,
You guys have a preference?
Is there anything due with quarters?
I say it might be easier to do. Or December, January,
January.
less changes.
Run W two and.
Question. What's your thoughts?
November
November,
through
Dec-
January.
November, December, January.
That's fine.
Would that be just medical or vision and dental as well?
It all depends on whether vision and dental,
Find out.
come in, but
If
currently
you
right now,
qualify
just
for
medical.
plan.
Yeah, thank you.
You'll have to bring back to us whether the vision and dental are part of that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, we good on page 3? Oh, vendor, Trubank?
There was something we wanted them to refund.
Correct, whether the vision and dental, as I point to them, then whether they can be those premiums that are able to be pulled out of that fund or not.
Adam, did you want them to look at like
Also,
some
the
short-term stuff too, or no? Or you just
And biometric.
conceding?
screenings,
It might, while they're doing the research. it
Might
might-
as well.
yeah.
Worth knowing.
Yeah,
The EAP was mentioned, but we also thought about the biometric screening costs that are coming out of operating. It's $45 per employee. They come on site to do it, and then there's a small fee when they go to Hy-Vee or another facility, administrative fee there, so.
So just check into anything that can come out of that,
Anything.
and we'll be happy.
Wow. Go back to that goes back to how do we administer that? Is that something that it's easily done, or we track, or how do we?
Are you talking wellness incentives like through the lifestyle?
Well, you talked about the
spending?
biometric kind of screening.
That's
already being
done It's- today.
Oh, okay.
Yep, already built in.
good question though. All right, vendor, current Trubank, stay with that.
Yeah, I would
See what the investment options are, yes.
I would agree.
very much like to stay there, but we need to look into that. I think part of why it's not been a thing is most people are learning that it's an
Possibility.
option.
It's,
Well,
they've accumulated. enough.
Yeah, the funds probably haven't gotten to that level until recently. I would.
For sure. And it's just, it's a nice thing to give people something. Right. The tax benefits and investment benefits are pretty nice.
Okay, dental, go for recommended action, 3% decrease in mutual loan amount. Vision, recommended action, move to Delta Dental for 9% decrease.
yes.
And all the others are yes.
It also, yeah, it gives them better vision.
Does, it gives them better vision. Absolutely. Everything's for the good of the order. You folks have your walking with what we need, anybody?
Yeah.
So are we coming back again in April, or what's the plan? Where are we here? I noticed, I saw something here.
Usually we just present a resolution, you guys at a council meeting and then at a board meeting.
Yeah, and you'll work with you on that, make sure that resolution.
Yeah, they all work together.
Okay, okay.
There may be some items we wanna discuss as a group.
Depends on what we come back with.
Okay, so figure out where we are in April, where we are money wise. Is that what you're talking about, Dom? Is that what you're thinking?
The things that they were looking
Revision
into and
to-
providing us feedback on and
The health fund.
Yeah, okay. We want to set a time to do that, or what do you, how much time do you think you'll need? Sorry.
We'll get back to you.
All right,
I don't know.
okay.
Just
Oh, you'll be
all
good.
depends on how quickly we get information back.
All right, well, maybe tentative look at early April, or maybe we can do that. Maybe the second weekend in April. Okay, it's not April 2nd. Not April 2nd. Would that be April 14th, maybe something, but that's just tentative.
Oh, either the second or fourth week would be
Yeah.
preferred.
Okay, good then? Okay, all right.
Close meeting. That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we have.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Passed.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Okay, now we'll take. Give me the green light. All right, I will call the special council meeting of March 10th, 2025 to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ray,
Here.
Bellby,
Here.
Armstrong.
Here.
Beach.
Here.
Stones.
Present.
And Mayor Richardson.
Present. First item on the agenda is discussion regarding the interim city manager position. We have a recommendation in front of us that Doug Byland be appointed as the interim city manager. We have a motion in a second. We'll discuss it.
Moved. Second.
Any discussion?
I mean, I don't think there's much discussion. I think it's a solid recommendation. I'm in favor of it.
I agree. Doug's shown that he's a true team player, and through budget discussions this week, I've been very impressed. He stepped up to the plate and we watched Doug throughout the last 2.5 years or so since I've been involved. With leadership is in very good hands. Thank you, Doug, for
Yeah.
being willing to step up and do what we need.
Any other comments from anybody?
I agree. I can't really say much. So.
Back up.
Yeah, cool. I just want to make a quick comment. Just give me a few seconds here. The last 11 years of my working career, my job was to go into businesses to find distributors for our manufacturing network, for a company that made very special fire doors, fire products, those kinds of things. And I got pretty good at going into a business and spending a week in that business to find out if they had a good fit with our company. Looking at sales, looking at finance, looking at leadership, looking at all those things that went into that. And I got pretty darn good at it, not to toot my own horn, but a lot of those people are still with the manufacturer that I represented at that time, and they're still with them today. Some of the other folks, not so much. But what I want to point out is good distributors had good leadership, had good people in positions that were important, and staff that was very supportive and believed in what they were doing. I will tell you right now that I think Doug epitomizes those things. Wade does as well. So do all of our department heads. I really appreciate all of the things that I saw the last week, spending about 35 plus hours in the city hall. Had a chance to observe a lot of people, had a chance to talk to a lot of people. I still have to get around to department heads, but I got to tell you that we have a wonderful staff. And I said that Friday night at the employee banquet, where we gave out recognition awards for the years of service. And I truly believe that our city is our staff. And I appreciate everything. And I think this is the right choice for the right time. So that's my comment. We have a motion and a second. Mayor or the clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Stones.
Aye.
Bellby,
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Doug, you want to sit up here with Wade? Wade, stay there. Go ahead and sit up there with Wade, but we have a resolution to increase your salary. You and I had a little bit of a conversation about that. What's your thought on that?
You say that I didn't think it was appropriate at this current time in the budget, but I understand how city operates, so I understand both sides of that story. We want to keep moving forward as normal policies and things are. Show the staff that we're committed to them too.
Right. So with that, I'm going to open discussion here before we move forward, and you can ask Doug some questions, or we can go ahead and make a motion here, one of the two.
Is there gonna be any resentment if you stay at your salary versus bumping you up?
We know.
What's that difference?
5%. 5%.
So I would say Doug's saying, don't give it to me, leading by example, right? So I get that and I appreciate that. You know, if council can.
So we're looking at what, 6 weeks to 8 weeks of,
Probably. Best scenario, probably if we, March 25th, is that when we've got people coming in, is that correct? And,
April 2nd is
April
the-
2nd's in person.
yeah. And it's probably gonna have to give them anywhere 30 to 45 days, depending on their current employer. So you're
May, mid-May, maybe.
probably looking at 8 weeks, maybe.
8 weeks.
Yeah.
In the spirit of saving money, and if Doug is okay with it, I'm fine with him at his current salary, but if you guys think differently because of the increased workload, I can certainly get on board with that as well. It's not a large savings. I mean, 8 weeks at a 5% increase.
What'd you pop up there?
I'm just guessing at Doug's salary. Ballpark in it, right?
$633.
How much?
It was roughly 7,000 for a full year increase, so I'll take your 7,000 and
5 by 26 times 4. Not much money.
yeah, it's not a whole lot of money.
I don't see it as much of a money issue, really. I think it's just a symbolic gesture of what you're trying to do with your leadership. I appreciate it. I don't know. I didn't think I'd be asked that question tonight. I'm still working my way through it because I can see both ways, right? Employees, we don't want people to be reticent to ask for what they deserve and are earning, right? But we also appreciate what you're doing. How's that for, I don't know. Let me just ponder for another 20 seconds or something else.
I'm fine with either one.
You're looking at
What would
$1,200.
you like us to do?
Put him on the spot.
Yeah, take that.
Either way, it's going back to the city no matter what.
He told me he was gonna write a check.
So I mean, $100 per department, right? Whatever it ends up being.
Gotcha.
But he's basically telling you he's gonna give the money back.
Yeah.
In
I would make a motion to save the paperwork then.
I know,
the Department of Record World where we pay for service for fees for our services.
So your motion is what, Josh?
I don't know what I'm supposed to motion to not approve the resolution.
I would make a motion to keep the salary at the current salary he makes.
I'd make a motion to leave his salary at his current salary while he's the interim city manager.
I second the motion.
The motion is second, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Jones,
I
Doug, your service is well intended.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. While we got it, here real quickly, I do want to mention too that, we had about 90 people attend the banquet on Friday night. I thought it was well attended, had a great time, and, do appreciate everybody being there, so. All right, Wade, do you want us to go into a closed session? If so, you have to tell us why you want to be in a closed session.
We have to do that once we've gone into the closed session.
Oh, we have to do that. Okay, so I have a motion to go into a closed session then. Motion and a second, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Beach,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll be in closed session.